Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday, NCAA Tournament Early Edition.
Let's go. Let's go. A little bit of an early episode today because there's going to be tons of basketball on throughout the day, and we would like to watch it. So we decided let's knock out the show a bit early here. Keith, how are you doing? How are you enjoying the tournament so far?
Yeah, it was fun yesterday. There weren't super huge upsets, but there were a couple good ones. McNeese taking down Clemson and Drake beating Missouri. So those were fun games. So we enjoyed those. Had a great time hanging out with my buddy and his girlfriend and another buddy of ours, and I just had a really good time, man. It was a blast. It's always fun to get together with people and watch games and hang out and tell all the same old stories you've told 100 times and all that stuff. So we had a good time.
It is indeed a lot of fun. And people asking in the chat, aren't we early today? Yes, but again, that's because there's a bunch of games coming on today.
40 minutes.
40 minutes. Yeah, we're going to check out. What do we have? We have Baylor and Mississippi State coming up.
Yeah, Baylor, Mississippi State. If you're an NBA fan scouting the tournament, VJ Edgecombe is a player to watch for Baylor, a potential top 5 pick. So really good looking wing out of Baylor, played for the Bahamas this past summer. So that's the guy you want to take a look at.
And again, I can't emphasize enough, if you're an NBA fan, use Keith's guide. I'll drop the link in the just in the comments here on the YouTube side so that everybody can see it. Again, if you're on X, you can find it pinned to the top of Keith's account. It's a great guide telling you all the draft eligible players or the draft quality players, I suppose, for the NBA prospects. Yeah, that are in this tournament, and when you can see them, where you can see them, all that sort of stuff. So very, very valuable information. And that's part of why we are live a little bit earlier than normal, because we want to be able to catch these games. So yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, it's the first 2 days of the tournament are such a blast because you get caught up in the upsets of it all, and you get a chance to see a whole ton of people out there playing and check out some guys that are going to be headed off to the NBA and all that stuff. And yeah, the guide is just to help you kind of find players. If you're, hey, who's this kid on this team? Is he an NBA quality guy? And you can check it out. Or if you've heard about a player and you want to find out when they play and maybe get your first look at them, that's why we put the guide together. And it's all updated through yesterday. So it's sorted by game start time. So you see the Baylor Mississippi State game there at the top, and we got a few prospects in that one. And then we just kind of go through the day. And today's going to be a fun day because Duke plays today. So that's always, loaded up with
capture the flag and all that. Let's go.
Yeah, we don't have one other update in our little bracket challenge. We don't have any perfect brackets left in our bracket challenge. A couple people went 15 for 16 yesterday, so they're leading the way with that. But yeah, and I think I looked at it this morning. There's like 26,000 total perfect brackets left out of like 25 million on ESPN. So that's always a fun thing to track as well.
BC, we know it's 8:30 in California. Trust me, I'm not a fan of mornings either, but there's basketball on today, so we wanted to get this show in earlier than usual. Let's get into some of our stuff here, given that we've got a game to go watch in just a little bit. And I thought we talk a lot about upsets in the NCAA tournament. The NBA playoffs is much less, ripe for upsets because it's a 7-game series and not just a one game, a one-off. Also longer games, so that means that most of the time the best team wins. But Keith, when we're looking at the upcoming NBA playoffs and we look at if the playoffs were to start today, looking at some of the matchups, what upsets or potential upsets do you see?
Yeah, I think I don't see any of the 7 or 8 seeds playing teams beating the top 2 seeds in either conference. In fairness, we have no idea who that's going to be in the West. We know it's going to be Cleveland and Boston in the East, but I don't see Hawks, Magic, Bulls, Heat getting past them. Detroit, New York, maybe. Is Detroit even going to be the 6th seed if the Bucks keep slipping a little bit? I know they beat the Lakers.
They beat the South Bay Lakers, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's I think, we'll see if the Pistons can catch them. I kind of don't think they will, but 4, 5, 6 still in range. I would say I'd give a puncher's chance to any one of those teams to beat the Knicks. I think the Knicks have really kind of struggled. They are starting to look like they did a little bit at the end of last season. Jalen Brunson's hurt, obviously with the sprained ankle, but other guys look like they're starting to wear down a little. And those are the things that we worry about with the Knicks. So I would give whoever is the 6th seed at least a puncher's chance in the East.
Would you even consider an upset if and I don't know who would be the betting favorite, but if the Bucks beat the Pacers in the 4-5 match, if the playoffs were to start today, I mean, it's so close there.
Not really. Yeah.
That's not really much of a
I think almost more people, even if Indiana was the 4 seed, might consider the Pacers an upset. Over the Bucks, just because it's still Giannis and Dame, and let's see what it looks like with them. Right, they have not always gotten into the playoffs healthy or lasted healthy in the playoffs, as the Pacers know last year when they beat them. So we'll see. But yeah, the more interesting is the West.
Yeah, and it's the West. But then, I mean, in terms of upsets, like again, it may not be an upset, but right now the 3-6 would be Warriors Nuggets, which would be an incredible first round series. I don't even know.
Okay.
Yes,
last night.
Yeah, that was scary. We saw that. In fact, Keith, I was live doing play-by-play for the Lakers game, and we were keeping an eye on the Warriors game because we're standings watching and all that. And we flipped over while we were doing that on playback, flipped over to the Warriors game because the Lakers were, I believe they were either at halftime or in a timeout or something. And I flipped over to the Warriors game just in time to see that. I mean, scary injury.
Scary.
Hopefully he's okay. If he is healthy, though, I mean, the 3-6 matchup could be one. The 4-5, I think it's the same as East, though, where I don't see, like, let's say 2-7 is Houston Clippers. The Clippers have won some games, but and they have more of a shot than the East 2-7 matchup. But I don't think the Clippers beat the Rockets or the Nuggets or the Lakers or the Grizz or whoever winds up as the 2 seed.
Well, and I do wonder with the Clippers and Wolves if whoever is the 7 seed, or maybe if, let's say Steph is out for a couple weeks and the Warriors slip a little, if one of those teams plays Houston in the 2-7, I think most people will pick the lower seeded team there. I think we might see one where a lot of people are picking that upset just because I think it's with Houston. There's a sense of their young team. They haven't even been to even the play-in yet. They're clearly going to be a playoff team. So I wonder if that's one where people pick it. So that's probably in the range there. But outside of somebody really knocking off the Thunder in the first round, I don't know how many of these I would even really consider to be upsets because these teams are also close to each other in terms of how I feel about them as teams.
Yeah. I mean, like even if the Clippers did beat Houston, that wouldn't be. It would be an upset, but it wouldn't be an insane when you've got Kawhi and Harden and all those kind of guys. And Ivica Zubac has had a phenomenal season as well.
And same with like Minnesota, if they were to beat them, I think people would be like, all right, Minnesota made that run last year. Like they're a good team. So I have a feeling that's what we're going to see. Whoever Houston is playing, unless it's maybe like Memphis, I bet a lot of people go the other way. I'm going to raise my hand and say probably me too. I will probably pick whoever's on the other side, pending health and all that stuff when we get there.
But no, typically, right, in the NBA, the saying has been forever. It's been defense wins championships.
Sure.
And I think the Houston Rockets have a pretty solid defense. Now, the Clippers have a very good defense as well. There's other teams that have good defenses. But it wouldn't the Rockets play style. I know they haven't done it before. And is it simply because we haven't seen them do it before argument? Like we see people discounting the Cavs or discounting the Thunder simply because we haven't seen them do it before? Is it that? Or is it there's something structurally that you think isn't going to translate well to the playoffs for Houston?
I worry about their ability to get buckets in the playoffs. Like, who's going to be the guy? Like, Jalen Green's a good scorer, but, like, are we really going to trust Jalen Green to go, be the guy to lead you to 4 wins over another equally good team? That's where I worry a little bit. The best way for Houston to win is what you said. It's defend, turn these games into rock fights, make them really ugly, throw it back to the 90s, early 2000s where it's 95-90 type games, and they have a really good shot at winning those games. That's what I worry about is, are they going to be able to score enough and get buckets when they really need them? Because 100%. I agree with the defense wins championship thing, but I think you still have to have the guy you can throw the ball to and trust he's going to go get you a basket, whether he gets it or he creates a look for somebody else. So that's where I'm still a little iffy. In addition to, we've never seen him do it before. And often in the NBA, another truth that holds is teams don't really go on long runs their first time through the playoffs. It's because it's a whole different animal. It's so different playing the same team 4, 5, 6, 7 times over a 2-week period where, all right, this worked yesterday. Is it going to work tomorrow? Right. That's where it becomes really tough with the adjustments. And sometimes those teams really struggle with that.
Yeah, it does take time. You have to navigate those waters a few times usually before teams break through and have success.
Yep.
I use the Pirates of the Caribbean analogy all the time, right? It's the Isla de Muerta, where it can only be found by those who already know where it is. It takes getting to the playoffs, getting that experience, figuring it out, and then you can find your way to the promised land. Lake Show said, front office Friday, ready for the playoffs to start, LFG Lakers. So, Keith, is that... I feel like, especially when we're watching so many teams that have guys out and all of like this, and we're standings watching, the playoffs are so close, and yet at the same time they feel so far away. I'm getting to the point where I'm beyond ready for the play. Let's just start the playoffs. Let's go. Is that where you're at as well?
Yeah, as much as I start to get a little bummed out when we get there because it just means less basketball.
True.
But yeah, I'm ready to cut loose the tanking teams, the lottery teams that are really have no real interest in winning. There's just not a lot there. And there's been, as much as I've harped on all year, there's been great games just about every single night. The schedule this week, which is okay because it's the NBA always takes a backseat to the tournament this week. It has not been the best schedule of games. There's kind of, you're looking around and you're like, like this is what we're watching. Even last night, like Bucks Lakers, if you look at it on paper, it's like, all right, pretty good matchup. Right. And then it's like, oh, no one's playing on either. I mean, I guess the Bucks had a lot of guys, but
they missed game. But
yeah, it wasn't the same as what it could have been, and that's where it starts to turn into. I'm not. Now I don't have a whole lot of interest in that one. And it was obviously a runaway for the Bucks because the Lakers were, that's another one of those, lose the battle to win the war kind of games. So, but yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for the playoffs to get here. And the nice thing again is just about the time the tournament is wrapping up, we're into that last week. So there's still a lot of fun seeding battles to watch and play out in both conferences that we'll be keeping an eye on. But yeah, I'm ready for playoff basketball.
How do you feel about what the Lakers did last night? And they're not the only team, obviously, that's been doing stuff like this. But JJ Redick was very blunt before the game, just said the guys that are healthy will play. So sticking by the no, these guys are actually hurt type thing. But we all know what's going on. I got a bunch of messages from a number of fans last night saying, I spent a fortune on these tickets, and now I'm going to this game, and I was going to see Giannis and Dame against Luka and LeBron, and now one of those guys is playing, and everybody else is out, and it's not even going to be a competitive game. Like, does the NBA need to do something about that? Is this just the way it is? And if you're buying tickets to the second night of a back-to-back in March, it's kind of buyer beware. Like, how do you feel about what we're seeing?
Yeah, that last part is a really great point. You have to be really careful whenever anybody's asking me, when should I go to a game? I always tell them, make sure the team's not on the second night of a back-to-back. Ideally, not even on the first night of a back-to-back, because we're seeing a lot of teams like Boston has been doing it where they're kind of locked into two. They're sitting guys on one end or the other of those. So yeah, you're probably not going to get a great feeling. I feel for those who buy tickets and go to games. I really, really do. Like it stinks because you spend a lot. I mean, these tickets are expensive, right? Especially Laker tickets, right? There's no cheap Laker tickets.
I got a story to tell you about that when you're done.
So like that part I do really worry about. The other challenge is, I think, though, when you look at it, there are way more Laker fans, if we keep it to that specific example, that aren't buying tickets and going to that game. It'd have a lot more invested in Luka and Dorian Finney-Smith. And I mean, LeBron's dealing with a legit, like he's out, like really out. But like they have a lot more invested interest in those guys being healthy for a playoff run Then they do one game in Milwaukee, one game versus Milwaukee in the regular season. So that's
Sure.
tough. As far as what should the league do, I think the league's kind of done about all they can at this point, where it is, hey, we have the player participation policy in place. Here's what it really means. With that, teams are obviously getting a little creative with, hey, this guy's actually really hurt. But like, does anybody watch Luka and think Luka is 100% when he plays? He's playing great, but like he is still kind of limping around out there. You can tell he's not right. Every time he comes out, he puts on the WWE championship belt around his waist, basically to keep the back hip warm or whatever that thing's doing. So I fully like you're trying to win a title. Like that's the end of the day. You're not trying to win one regular season game. So that sucks for people who buy tickets, but I get it, man. It's really tough.
Did you see we're back to Luka bleeding knee? Luka's bleeding knee happening. Yeah, that's the thing now. It's crazy how often it's like a constant thing. So anyway, so last night's game, I was doing the play-by-play for it, and it was so non-competitive, right, for most of the game, that by the third quarter, I was having this conversation with the chat on YouTube and on playback, and we're looking up the ticket prices of Lakers games and then compare like in different. We were looking at, okay, I can get in the door to see the Thunder and the Jazz, and I can get in the door for $3. If it's a Lakers game, to get in the door, it's $200 and something, right? Like just comparing like the actual ticket prices, everything. So that we went on this little deep dive down the rabbit hole of how dramatically the prices increase if it's a Lakers game. And I was looking at the Lakers are in Memphis at the end of the month. The Celtics in Memphis, the lowest ticket price you get in was like $60 or whatever. And that's the reigning champs, and it's two playoff teams going head to head. And for the Lakers, the lowest I think it was $250 to get it. I mean, it's so, especially when we talk about people being disappointed with players not playing, that's going to be especially true when it's a Lakers game, because we know the ticket prices are so crazy, so high.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really gets tough. I mean, I've seen situations here in Orlando where like Laker tickets on the secondary market are ridiculous, and then these teams try to fight, sell it, especially once you get into playoff time, because you don't want fans from the other side invading your building. Like Magic fans have dealt with that for years and years with Celtics fans and Knicks fans, because there's so many transplants, me being one of them, that moved here. And it's like, if you want to go, like they'll pay a ton of money to go. But yeah, it's tough, man. It is really tough.
Let's go here. I have a question. Mr. Easley said, in the playoffs, would you want a team that's high in offense and bottom in defense, or high in defense and low in offense? I mean, for me, it's an easy pick of the latter. It's defense over offense come playoff time. But that said, if you are not, say, at least around top 10 in both, what NBA history tells us, aside from the Denver Nuggets championship years, that most of the time you're not going to win the whole thing unless you're top 10 in both categories.
Yeah, and that's very consistent. There was a couple years during the Warriors run where they were like just outside the top 10 on defense. But yeah, it's you really want to be there in that top 10 on both, and if you're top 5 in both, you're pretty consistently a title contender. So, but yeah, if you're making me pick one or the other, I'm going to pick defense, but I'm going to go back to a little bit about our Rockets conversation. You still got to have guys who can get buckets. If you can't score, you're going to struggle to win. It sounds great to win games 95-90 until you have to get to 95 points to win them, right? Like that sort of stuff. There we go. Like spike. Let's go.
Hit that like button, everybody. Hit that like button. Yeah, I will say the importance of defense only increases in the playoffs, but like I think the ideal would be if you were to balance where a team's strengths are, like 60-40 defense to offense come playoff time, something like that. Because you have to be competent in every area. Sky said, I have a question about the offseason. When teams do trades, when do the 25-26 salaries come into play? And do they always trade in next season's value? So say a draft night trade. Are they trading using this season's numbers or next season's numbers?
Yeah, this season's numbers until July 1st. So that's why often at the draft, you will see teams have agreed to trade X, and then it gets executed in July. because they have to wait until they have cap space or the number changes or whatever it is with a trade with that. So through June 30th, it's going to be this current year's salaries. So if it's a draft night trade, and you'll hear us talk about it draft week and all that, where it's like, especially if there's one agreed to, where it's, all right, is this happening now? Is this legal to happen today? Or does this have to wait? That's going to be even more prevalent with the apron rules and things like that, because there'll be certain things where it's like, all right, this team can't do this until we flip the calendar and all that. So yeah, so we're in there for 24-25 through June 30th. Then once the calendar flips over to July 1st, we flip over. But again, it's July 1st, except then we go the moratorium for a few days. So it's really going to be like July 5th or so is when trades will start going official with that.
Exactly. So it takes a little bit of time there for that. But again, that's where we will, as a basketball public, we will act as though that if we hear about a draft night trade, we will act as though that trade is already done,
100%.
Even though it may not be executed for another, week and a half, maybe longer.
Yeah. And you'll hear us say often too, like, remember this was agreed to, but this could expand into involving more teams. That's something the Pelicans did, a number of times where they kind of took a trade that was agreed to and then expanded it out into including more teams and more players and those kind of things. So
this is a good question. On Spot Track, do you track the number of games two-way players have available to play? This has been a big thing in Lakerland, Keith, because we've been seeing how many games does Jordan Goodwin have left? What about Trey Jemison? All of that. So I'm curious about this because I've been looking for that resource somewhere as well.
Yeah, next year we're going to add it for next season. It's something I track individually. I update it. Early in the year, I don't update it very often. I don't really start updating it until after the trade deadline, and then I look at it. But yeah, it's something we're looking at adding for next season. We'll add a little two-way section with games available.
Everybody, just a warning here: we are about 20 minutes away from VJ Edgecombe playing in Baylor against Mississippi State. The show will be ending then. So if you have questions, we'll be done by then. So if you have questions, get them in. Yeah. All right, let's go here. JJ Castillo, if the Mavs potentially forfeit games due to the league requirement of 8 players, how does it affect the other team that are supposed to face the Mavs with their record? Well, first of all, I can't imagine. So from an NBA perspective, it's not going to happen because it would be disaster. Not only would you have the team forfeit, you'd have to give people their money back. Like you've got a mess. But what would the NBA, let's say the Mavs legitimately had 5 players available and that was it, and everybody else was ridiculously injured. Or let's make it more difficult. Let's say it's 4 players that they could actually put on the floor. They were just crushed by the injury bug. They're out of their two-way players. They're up against the first apron hard cap, and there's nothing they can do. They have 4 guys that can actually step onto the court. What would the NBA do in that kind of emergency disaster situation?
So in theory, there would be a forfeit. In that case, like in theory, and what would happen is the Mavs would lose and the other team would get a win, and that would be it. What I believe, and I've asked around, and so far the league has basically said no exceptions will be made, and that's easy to say because we're not there. But if we really got to that position, I think the league would do with the union and with the board of governors, they do like an emergency quick session to say, hey, we need to get them 1, 2 more, whatever it is that they need to be able to play this game. Because of what you said, you would lose. You'd have to refund all those tickets because you're not playing the game. You would have to not refund, but you would lose the TV that night. You're not going to have a game on television wherever it was. And you don't want the whole idea of Team X that's in the playoff race picked up a win over this because of a forfeit reason. So we're not there. We're not even, it's kind of funny. A lot's been made of this, but we're not even really close because what happens here, and this happens pretty regularly, like right in the day or two after the trade deadline, especially if there's like that one year where the Lakers made like 5 trades and like remade the entire roster.
The guys are still on the move. They're not to their new markets yet. Yeah.
So what you end up doing is you put a guy, even if a guy's out for the season, you put him in his sweatsuit and he sits on the bench and just you never even
Right.
You just think of them not really there. So, yeah, I think we're in a spot where a lot's being made of this, but yeah, I mean, and now they are getting some guys back. PJ Washington's been back. Kai Jones is back now. So I think they're going to be okay. But yeah, it's a weird spot, but it is one where the NBA does not want to just jump into going into a spot to say, all right, immediately here's an exception, because that undoes the reasons for a hard cap. Like you put those in for a reason, and you can't start making exceptions to, oh, well, this team's really hurt or whatever.
Because then teams would be a little bit more bold with sitting players and stuff like that. And they would say, hey, look, the NBA saved them in the past. They're going to save us too in this situation. So, yeah, I agree with you. And that's obviously, I hope we never have to, really find out the answer to that or experience that. Because like you said, most teams, they will just dress a player that's hurt, not play them, even if they have to play with 5. It would take an extreme situation where you literally only have 4 players that could actually step, like everybody else has a broken foot or something like that, to get to something crazy like that.
Exactly.
All right, let's go here. Could you trade for a player at the end of the season that's going to be a free agent to avoid a sign and trade in a hard cap situation?
No. So once a team season ends, if that player is set to be a free agent, they can't be traded. So anybody who's set to be a free agent is off limits, and that includes if they have a player or a team option. They're a pending free agent. So unless that is resolved, you can't trade them. So it's a good question. It comes up every year because we're going to talk about it too. This trade can really, this team can now make trades. This is where they'll go, but you got to take all those guys that don't have a certain guarantee. I shouldn't say guaranteed because you could trade a non-guaranteed player, but they don't have a contract for next season.
Yeah.
They're not eligible to be traded.
All right. Lake Show said our nemesis, the dreaded Celtics. Do you think the new ownership will have a positive or negative impact on the organization? I'm hoping the latter. Keith, you're the Celtics guy. The Celtics sold $6.1 billion, I believe. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the sale? New ownership coming in. How are you feeling?
Yeah, the real answer is we don't know, right? It's easy to say a lot of good things through the media of, hey, we're committed to raising banners and winning titles and all that stuff. And everybody's just kind of in a spot where, okay, cool. The good news is Bill Chisholm is a Massachusetts guy, born and raised just north of Boston, on the North Shore. He is a lifelong Celtics fan. By all accounts, those who have already talked to him, he watches every game. He really knows the team. They're he's not just somebody who's I'm a Celtics fan and knows Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Right. Let me park my money here for a little while because values have gone up or whatever. Yeah, right.
As I say all the time with owners, you want owners who hire good people, get out of the way, and write really big checks. Yep. That's all you can want as a sports fan. Sounds like that's the plan here. We'll see. With that, there was a lot of talk of they're going to try to maybe build their own arena and all that. They did just sign a new 12-year lease at TD Garden. That's really interesting with this sale that they got so much money when they don't own their own arena. That is kind of telling. I'll add this part here for everybody who wants expansion. This is huge. The NBA wanted to crack the $6 billion mark for the Celtics because now they can go and tell those expansion groups, we need $4.5, $5 billion, whatever it is, for you to buy in to that. And that's why the expansion fees are so high, because you're buying into the club. You would now be one of 32 teams with that. So they're definitely going to I think we'll get to the end of the season in the off season and we'll start to hear, all right, we're formally starting the expansion process. So it doesn't mean we're taking bids and a team will start within the next year or two. It's probably just we're going to start opening things up a little bit with that. So I think they're really in a spot with that. So we'll see, what ends up happening there. But yeah, I think all around for the Celtics, I think it's good news that it's a local. It's somebody who's got a lot of money. We'll see where it goes. I think the whole Wick Grouseback's going to be in charge until 2028 or
right.
So that's, I don't know. I mean,
I wanted to ask you about that because we heard similar things about Mark Cuban with the Mavs, and then he didn't have as much control as I think even he expected to. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, my guess is he'll retain control through when obviously the rest of this season, then probably part of next season, meaning he'll be kind of in charge hand in hand. But they made this really good point on the Hoop Collective today. Brian Windhorst did of the NBA when they go to Board of Governors. There's one. Like there's not. You don't walk in with two people or anything like that. There's one person who speaks for their franchise. And I'm sorry, if I paid $6 billion, I'm gonna be the one who speaks for it.
Right.
I'm not, so I'm sure he'll be involved for the next year or two. We'll see when it actually gets proved. But we'll kind of go from there. But yeah.
All right, let's go here. Where did it go, folks? Let's not get upset if there's a Lakers question in the comments.
We just don't need to be so
chill.
Angry. It's noontime. It's a great day. It's Friday. We got hoops starting in 10 minutes. Like, come on, be nice.
This is a good follow-up. And I didn't see this comment, but it was interesting to hear. Did he say this, that he doesn't expect any team to stay in the second apron for longer than 2 years? And then there would be some ramifications of, if that's truly the mindset, there would be some tough decisions for the Celtics.
Yeah, he's talked about it in the past as far as like there's challenges with it. I don't know this exact quote. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I mean, the reality is, it is tough. Like the Celtics right now, going into next season, by the time they fill out their roster, they're going to be in a $500 million team for salary plus tax penalties. I mean, that's probably doable for a year. And I think if they win the title again, and they're right there, I think they'll probably run it back for the most part. If they fall short, if they got bounced any earlier than a really competitive conference finals, you're going to start seeing some changes get made. I mean, and they've been pretty open about that they know this is not a forever thing with this, so you can't keep running up these large bills. The other thing that's really important to know, the tax bands change this year. So this coming season, I should say. So what happens is, if you're only a little bit into the tax, it's not as punitive. And so I think we'll see more teams be willing to go into the tax because it's not going to kill you to be, 4 or 5 million into the tax. But if you're deep into the tax, you're well into the second apron and those things, it becomes even more punitive to be there. And then of course you add, if you're a repeater team, then it basically doubles. So Celtics are kind of to a point where next year, what it looks like is they'll be about an eight times marker on every dollar they spend in salary. So just signing $2 million minimum contract is going to cost you about $16 million. Is roughly where that'll be. So that's just, they're there. The Suns are there. The Bucks could be there. Like that's just kind of where it's going, with this. So you just got to be a little bit cautious with that. I think a lot of it depends on, again, you win a title again, probably run it back. You don't, you probably start looking at making some changes.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that's where ownership will have a lot. And this is where you want ownership to say, no, whatever, I'll spend if we need to keep this team together. This is where, you talk about it's not quite as punitive in the tax anymore. That's because you have got ownership now that has so much money. That used to be like the big deterrent from overspending. Now the NBA under the new CBA is more focused on limiting your ability to build out your roster as the punishment for overspending instead of just attacking the wallet, because you've got some guys like Ballmer and some of the others where attacking their wallet, it's like, it's like trying to take down the Hulk with a paintball gun or something like it's just, he's not even going to feel it.
And that's why they had to put in all the restrictions on roster stuff.
Yes.
Because otherwise, I mean, Steve Ballmer, we've talked about it before. He could buy the NBA, like almost. So it's like, you let him run wild, and it was just going to be keep adding and adding and adding because he doesn't really care. So that's where like we get to a point where it becomes, you can't let it like how do I put it? You had to do something to make it punitive beyond just money. And that's why they put in all those, restrictions on rosters and the like.
Teddy said, is the Luka AD trade simply a proof of concept that owners can save hundreds of millions by simply swapping similar level superstars, therefore negating Supermax eligibility? Do Do you think that strategy may be used by others? So if you have two teams in a similar situation with superstar A and superstar B, and both are on the verge of getting Supermax deals, could those two teams just trade them for each other and say, oh, sorry, we can't Supermax anymore because you got traded? Is that like a path you see teams walk? Typically, teams get these guys and they say, no, this is our guy. We're not moving on from this guy, and they remain committed to it. But we've also seen like Boogie Cousins in the past when the Supermax first became a thing. The Kings, rather than give it to him, said, we don't want to pay you that. We're going to trade you instead. Could teams get creative and just swap similar level superstars to negate the ability to pay the Supermax?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think we could see that. I caution looking too much into the Luka trade on anything because it was just so weird and out of nowhere. And we've never seen a team take a guy unless that guy is like, I'm out of here, I am not staying, and move him when the player is that good. So that part, I don't want to make any sweeping generalizations of we're going to start seeing this all the time. But I mean, yeah, it's certainly possible that you could see two teams kind of link up and say, yeah, we could save a little bit of money and maybe not even really hurt our teams all that bad in the long run. It would, I don't think you'd see it be Luka AD where there's almost like 10 years of age difference. It'd probably be more like, I don't know, we're swapping. I can't read.
I'm trying to think of who the
Anthony
example
Edwards
would be.
for Cade Cunningham.
Sure.
Like, I'm just picking
that's
two guys that are close in age. Like, if you saw something like that, sure. Like, I would think that would be okay. They're like, and by no means do I think either team are going to do that, but yeah, I think it's interesting.
I know the Wolves would say no. Do you think the Pistons would say no to that right now? Cade for Ant
today, yeah, probably.
I like Cade. I like Cade a lot. I think he should be more in the conversation.
I think it was
Ant.
Kyle, who's like a longtime listener and viewer. He asked, "Is Cade going to make All NBA?" I think that's a lock. Like I think he's going to be.
He's been great.
All NBA. Yeah,
you saw that banked in 3 the other night. The bank is open.
He was awesome throughout that entire game. So like, yeah, he is. He's so good, man. And this is really great example. Don't give up on these guys, right? Don't like people so quickly want to proclaim he sucks. He's a bust. Yeah, I'm out like on that. And now look at him. He's great, especially young ball handlers take a little while to figure it out.
Sometimes too, we see this happen in the NBA where a guy changes their situation and it's a reminder of like, hey, NBA players are actually all really good, really talented. And sometimes it's just the scheme they're in, the situation they're in is not ideal for their talents. Look, Steve Nash goes from being an all-star with the Mavs to being an MVP, and he moved to the Suns, right? You look at what Quentin Grimes has been doing, right? Just by switching teams, suddenly he's putting up these big nights. Meanwhile, on the Mavs, Najee Marshall is suddenly stepping up into a big role because he's been forced into one. And you're going, oh, I didn't know Najee Marshall had that in his game. You see that happen sometimes where these guys are all very, very talented. And sometimes it just takes a minor change, either in the team they're playing for, the scheme that they're running, whatever it is, to allow them to kind of unleash some of that. So it's a good reminder that, hey, these guys are all very, 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 very talented. And oftentimes they have more in their bag than what we may get to see on that individual team.
Yeah, that's why I still watch teams at the end of the year that are bad. Or if like something jumps out in a box score, then I'll check it out. Because like Jake LaRavia is the example I used there. He was at the end of that miserable Grizzlies season last year, just got put in a spot where it's, hey, we're going to put a bunch of reps on you. Like, go handle the ball, go be the primary playmaker and score. And he did really well with it. And it was one of those things where it's like, all right, that's great. Now, is that because it's a bad team playing out the string, or is this going to carry over? And then you saw earlier this year, yeah, it kind of carried over, and that it was a lot of fun with that. So yeah,
and
there was somebody asked,
folks in the chat.
Somebody just asked, can you own two teams?
No.
You can't. Even if you own a minority stake as an individual, you have to sell that if you're buying into another team.
Folks in the chat, look, I'm about to boot a few of you here.
Yeah, you guys
if you want to talk basketball, talk basketball. But if you can't make your point without insulting the other person, without lowering it to that level, you're probably not very good at making your point or you don't have a good point to make to begin with, right?
Yeah,
You should
that's
be
not
able
what
to.
we're about here.
No,
Like,
come on,
you know,
folks, figure
come
it
on, if
out.
we can get along,
Right?
like the rest of you ought to be able to.
Right.
So,
All right, let's do this to finish up the show here. MC said, "Hey guys, thanks for great content. Do you think the NBA should make back-to-back games only home games?" That would be ideal. It's the logistics of it. I talked about this a little bit last night because arenas are getting used for concerts, hockey games, all kinds of other stuff. It's very, very difficult to put together an NBA schedule.
That's it. I did this thing when people were really kind of, harping on they got to change the schedule and they got to do this and they got to do that and all these things. There are only I think it's like half the NBA teams that are the primary tenant controller of their building. And it's even less. I think it's only 10 are the primary owner of their building. It's something like that. So that's the challenge. Like that's why the Clippers forever played like at noontime on the West Coast on Sundays, because a lot of times there was a Kings or Lakers game Sunday night. And that was a big part of when Steve Ballmer was like, hey, first thing I'm doing after I finalize buying the team, I'm building my own arena. I don't want to have to play all these, afternoon games on the weekends because I want to have it. So that's the tough part of this, especially like you said. I mean, and then these arenas, they got to book concerts and everything else in there and all these other things. So yeah, it's the NBA schedule is a challenge put together. The only real answer to eliminating back-to-backs, really cleaning them up, is either make the season longer. They're not going to do it. They don't want to start earlier because they don't want more overlap with football. They're not going to start or run later because we saw what it looked like in the bubble. People just, even when we're starved for entertainment, people aren't looking for NBA in the summertime like that. Like it's, so then, or the other option is play less games. And that's probably not happening either.
The only thing I could see is maybe remove like a week of the preseason games. So you maybe play like 3 preseason games instead of 6. And then, but that's not going to completely solve the problem, but that would maybe lighten things up a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. And let's go back to, they've done, I mean, I know we all complain about it right now, but man, they have cleaned it up considerably. Even in the time that we've been covering the league, it used to be regularly every team played like 15, 16, 17 back-to-back sets. 4 games and 5 nights were very common. And those just, we don't have that anymore. Now it's, teams are down to 7, 8, 9 regular. And I know the Lakers are in this really goofy period here, but again, that's because of a reschedule. That's why they ended up with 6 games in 8 days, but those are pretty uncommon. But yeah, it's there's work that can be done for sure. I know teams that are 100% get rid of the preseason. The worry there is, are they going to turn their first week or 2 of the regular season into a pseudo preseason?
Right.
But teams don't need a month of preseason anymore because guys don't come in 40 pounds overweight. Most guys don't come in 40 pounds overweight and have to play themselves into shape anymore. They play all year round anyway. So it's, guys are coming in different. So yeah, I think it's the work to be done for sure. We'll see.
Yeah, and we'll see what the NBA ultimately does. I would like to see, obviously, the back-to-backs on the road are so tough. When you think, I have no idea how players do it. I mean, flying overnight, getting in at 4 a.m., trying to sleep for a few hours, and then go tip off another NBA game when you just finished one, 20 hours before that?
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's
even flying on really nice planes and
yeah,
everything else. It's really, I fly anywhere and I get off the plane and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go take a nap for the next 6
right.
hours. And I feel like garbage.
But that part of that's because we're old, Keith. That's
definitely true. Yeah, that is definitely true. I was I was feeling it yesterday a little bit. I was up till I stayed up and watched all the games. The final tourney game ended at 1. And then I was like, man, this is too late. I don't want to be up this late. But it's good. It's getting me ready for the playoffs because I do stay up for the playoff games.
That's right. All right, everybody.
No, you guys, we got it.
Jake said you guys are younger than LeBron. No, we're not.
No. There's nobody left.
Not.
No one left that I'm younger than in the
NBA. I would like to be, but that is not
I
true.
appreciate that. I appreciate that considering I got told yesterday I'm getting really gray. That was a nice comment made by the family.
Oh no.
All right, let's go watch some basketball.
Let's go watch some basketball. VJ Edgecombe is playing, so let's go check that out. Thank you everybody for joining the show. Until next time, see ya and stay safe.